Now, as we've been hearing at Sibos, Swift is working with Chainlink to help move global finance on-chain. The collaboration will enable banks and fund managers to use existing messaging infrastructure to access blockchain workflows without overhauling their core systems. The move will help save global financial systems tens of billions of dollars in processing costs annually, with minimal disruption to existing processes. And I'm joined now by Sergey Nazarov, co-founder of Chainlink, to discuss this in more detail. Hello, Sergey. It's great to have you here with us at the end of Sibos 2025. Now, Chainlink and Swift have been collaborating for years, but how has this partnership evolved, and what stage are we at today in bringing global finance on-chain?
Yeah, so I think we're at the production stage. I think the demand for digital asset infrastructure has massively grown even since the last Sibos. There's a lot of demand for stable coins, tokenized funds. I think the Swift membership banks have been signaling this very clearly to Swift and the whole Swift organization. I sense a whole new demand and willingness from Swift to go live into production. They announced that they have a chain. They also announced that they're continuing to move ahead with their interoperability work, which is with us. And so we see a definite production path now. And that's something that I think will be very exciting for the Swift membership. There's just some final details that are getting hammered out. And those final details, I think, will lead to a great experience for the Swift members that are on Swift messages and or using Swift APIs. So I think that's very well on track.
Now, how is Swift leveraging Chainlink's interoperability to seamlessly connect traditional financial systems with multiple blockchains?
Well, there's two levels of interoperability. First, it's the interoperability from Swift messages and Swift systems onto chains. So how does Swift interact with chains in the case of just any chain? And then there's the cross-chain interoperability. And Chainlink is the only system that effectively provides both the ability to integrate data and existing system commands onto a chain, as well as the ability for those commands to result in cross-chain events with CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol. So Swift is using us for both of those things, the ability to put a message into the Chainlink system and get it turned into a blockchain event, like the creation of a blockchain address, the creation of a blockchain account, the movement of a stablecoin, the use of the stablecoin for delivery versus payment against a tokenized fund are all examples. And then many of those actions will have a cross-chain component. And so now the Swift command, the Swift message will result in a cross-chain event. And so Chainlink can enable that as well. In many cases, those cross-chain events also require different types of data, identity data, various compliance data, which Swift has a lot of, which I think can also play an important role in enabling the transaction. And then on the Swift chain, I think we see Chainlink providing the cross-chain bridge, the data oracles, the identity oracles, all the different infrastructure that chain needs in order to operate correctly, in order to solve compliance problems, interoperability problems, and have all the data that it needs to actually have valuable, useful transactions.
Now, your joint work with Swift and leading institutions like UBS is advancing tokenized fund management. What's the significance of these pilots for the broader asset management industry?
So that work with UBS and Swift is a good example of the Swift member banks signaling that they see value in what we've created with Swift already. That is around fund tokenization and also the use of Swift payments to subscribe to or redeem from a tokenized fund, which is an interesting combination of existing payment systems and next generation digital assets like a tokenized fund. I think our work with UBS is really cutting edge, including where they're using the digital transfer agency standard that we've put out. And I think it shows how to do tokenized funds the right way. So I think there's these early movers like UBS who are really innovative and pushing the limits of what's possible. And they're creating kind of the template for the asset management industry to show, this is how you make a good tokenized fund. This is how you connect it to existing payment systems like Swift. This is how you receive stablecoins. This is how transfer agency should work in that tokenized fund. And so there's always these trailblazing, highly innovative groups, and UBS is doing that in this case.
Now, the industry has long struggled with fragmented corporate actions data. How is the second phase of Chainlink's initiative with Swift moving us closer to a standardized golden record?
So the corporate action solution and the collaborative initiative to get it polished in a way that it works for all the FMIs and the FIs has really grown massively. It was about 10 asset managers, banks, and FMIs. Now it's at over 24, including DTCC, Euroclear, SIX, a lot of the largest FMIs, and some of the largest banks like UBS, DBS, BNP, ANZ, so any of the largest banks. Basically, it's a solution to solve corporate actions by using Oracle networks to properly verify the corporate action, putting that corporate action on chain, allowing it to be used for digital assets, and then getting it connected across chains over CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol that's getting adopted by SWIFT and many others in the capital markets community now, to make that corporate action available across chains. And so now you have a better corporate action, final golden record. You have that golden record on the chain, which is a transparency and data sharing mechanism, making it available to anyone who wants it. And then you have CCIP connecting it to all the chains where things like tokenized stock, tokenized funds would find the corporate action useful. So that's just one category of data validation and data getting put on chain by Chainlink a unique way for asset servicing purposes. Chainlink does similar things with the NAV data for tokenized funds, proof of reserves for stablecoins, and all of these pieces of data are really necessary to create a vibrant ecosystem where you have high-quality stablecoins, high-quality tokenized funds, high-quality tokenized stock, public equity stock, and so the corporate actions one is seeing a lot of growth, I think, because tokenization of public equity stock is interesting, and corporate actions is such as an unsolved problem.
Now, Chainlink recently introduced the Digital Transfer Agent technical standard. How does this enable transfer agents and fund administrators to operate on-chain for the first time?
Transfer agency is a hard requirement in many jurisdictions for tokenizing anything because you need to comply with transfer agent requirements. I can't just send you public equity or a fund. We need a transfer agent in between us to guarantee that there's no fraud, that I actually own it, and that you correctly receive it. Now, transfer agency existing on chain is complex for existing transfer agents, existing fund administrators, existing custodian banks to figure out. We've worked with a lot of these fund admins, TAs, and custodian banks, and we've basically built the transfer agency solution that many of them are now starting to use. The digital transfer agency technical standard that we put out is basically a way for any transfer agent with an existing transfer agency business, any fund admin, any custodian bank that wants to offer transfer agency on chain to do it very quickly and easily and cheaply in a matter of days or weeks, depending on their IT department, rather than months or years. And what transfer agency on chain unlocks is the ability to tokenize all the things that rely on transfer agency. Because without transfer agency, you can tokenize it, but you can't transfer it. So there's really almost no point in tokenizing it. It's another one of these parts of the asset servicing lifecycle that has to exist on chain, that only Chainlink has now put on chain. And it really is another one of those things like corporate actions, like proof of reserves for stablecoins that unlocks the next stage of tokenization, in this case for tokenized funds and also tokenized public equity.
And of course, institutional adoption hinges on compliance. But how does Chainlink's automated compliance engine, when combined with Swift's infrastructure, allow financial institutions to securely scale tokenized assets?
So compliance is another one of those great problems in asset servicing, where, or even just the transaction lifecycle, where we can't have a transaction until we know each other's identity, and we can't have that transaction continue until we prove certain things to each other about us not being sanctioned, you and me being in the same jurisdiction, me having enough assets, you having enough assets, all these different nuances. So the first thing the automated compliance engine and the Chainlink compliance standard does is it creates a framework to put identity on chain, but to put it on chain in a cross-chain manner through something called CCID, the cross-chain identity. And the cross-chain identity can be underpinned by something like the LEI, which we've already integrated with, the legal entity identifier, which is the most common source of identity for organizations in the financial industry. And so the LEI can form the root of trust of a CCID, and then you build on top of that root of trust with other pieces of information, your location, that you're not sanctioned, you have enough assets to do a deal, a number of different proof points. And then all of that information has to get processed against a set of conditions. Those conditions also have to be on chain. The compliance engine puts them on chain. So now you have policies that exist on chain. They can also exist off chain and be confirmed against on chain. And then finally, the compliance engine has reporting back to regulators, which lets them understand what's going on and lets them basically approve the transactions or be comfortable with them happening at all. And that all integrates with Swift, once again, through Swift messages, because we have a number of Swift adapters in different systems to allow the existing Swift infrastructure to consume the information from various Chainlink services. That's true for the corporate actions example, where we had a Swift adapter that allowed that on-chain golden record about corporate actions to be consumed by Swift. It's true in this case where the compliance data can be consumed and shared via Swift messages. And it's true in many other cases. And that's really for the purposes of compatibility with the existing financial system, the existing financial rails, the existing financial institutions.
Now, I've got one more question for you this year, Sergey. Looking ahead, how do you see this Swift Chainlink partnership accelerating institutional adoption of tokenized assets and shaping the future of capital markets?
I think if we're able to take the Swift standard and make it compatible with the Chainlink standard, which we've done, and then we're able to put it out into the market, then you have the best of both worlds. You have the very large Swift membership of over 11,000. You have the thousands of banks that are already on the Swift standard. They're already using Swift private keys. They're already using Swift messages. Those signed messages are then converted into blockchain events using Chainlink systems. Then there's various information, compliance information, corporate actions information, all kinds of market information that needs to be added to that transaction. That also happens over Chainlink. Some of that data coming from Swift, some of it coming from folks like Deutsche Börse, who launched this week with Chainlink using DataLink, which is the product Chainlink has to put data on chain from institutions. And so you have the ability to have the data on chain, the transaction on chain. You have an ability to get it Swift systems back with all of the existing accounting and processing that Swift systems represent for the banks. So you have a kind of ease of use and ease of onboarding, and you have the best-in-class, most secure, most reliable system for making sure that the transactions happen on-chain correctly. So now you have reliable off-chain systems, and you have reliable on-chain systems, and they're working together through this great partnership where both of these two standards come together to provide this unique value and in this scalable, efficient way of using chains. And it's really not just about doing it once; it's about doing it millions of times efficiently, and then doing it in a scalable way, because the Swift community basically represents the banking community. And so scaling it up to the entire banking community, I think, can be a very big deal for the blockchain industry, for Swift, for Chainlink, and for the banking community.
Well, it's always great to have you here on Sibos TV, Sergey. Thank you so much for your time. Thrilling to hear everything that's going on at Chainlink, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again in 12 months' time over in Miami. But that's Sergey Nazarov, co-founder of Chainlink.